were going to be able to join us. I told our team, I'm like, keep it top secret because I wanted to surprise our membership, and I think it worked. But it's been the hardest secret I've had to keep all day. So,
well, listen, first, thank you so much for having me. The work, Greg, that you do, Kayla, the entire team is phenomenal. Y'all have just continued to elevate the league in a way that matters for Alabama. And a big thank you to all of you. I mean, you heard me when I was on the campaign trail say that I believe local leaders know best. And you all have been great partners in us trying to figure out how we create foundations and communities all across the state to help people achieve the American dream, to help close the gap between the have and the have-nots, and to help tackle hard problems and also seize opportunity. And so I'll be the first to tell you we don't get it right every day, but it is certainly not for a lack of trying. But standing shoulder to shoulder with you, I think we are really accomplishing big things. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you mean to your community, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.
You have been such an incredible leader and will continue to be in our state. Day in and day out, you are solely focused on making sure Alabama is first. That's been your mission from day one, and you have certainly fulfilled that. You had so many incredible accomplishments in 2025. What are some that you're most proud of?
Gosh, so what a whirlwind of a year. Really, if you look back over the last year, I think we have accomplished a great deal for the state, a number of projects across Alabama that are meaningful and transformative from an economic perspective, that's us actually, hitting the mark of being the deepest deepwater port in the Gulf of America, working diligently to make sure that we are putting that sediment in the right place and being responsible there, bringing Space Command home to Redstone Arsenal. So, huge, guys, and the lasting impact of that is going to be significant. But we're looking at our military bases all across the state, whether it's at the Wiregrass or here in Montgomery, or obviously there at Redstone, and making sure that we are making the proper investments so that we can continue to let those be economic engines in the communities that they serve, but also making sure that we are elevating national security for the entire country. Y'all have heard me say this, but national security means a great deal to Alabama, but we in this room know that Alabama means a great deal to national security. So in the midst of a lot of projects and meaningful transformation, I would say the Lake and Riley Act passed that at the very beginning of last year. That was the very first immigration enforcement legislation that we've passed in over 30 years. We passed it in a bipartisan fashion, and ultimately, you all know this, but if it had been in place, Lake and Riley would still be with us today. And so just being able to make an impact, taking an unimaginable situation and being trusted to lead the way. Her mom sent me a text the other day that just said, thank you for never forgetting Lakin and continuing to elevate this in a way that other people's lives will be changed. And so that was really transformative. Also leading the way on childcare. So this one thing I certainly want you all to know about. There are a number of different things in the tax code that we've updated for individuals and businesses to take advantage of, but one that's really important, 45F. So I led the effort in the working families tax cuts on this, but we were able to make that permanent and expand it to $500,000 for large businesses to be a part of the solution with regards to finding whether it's vouchers for their employees or an on-site facility. But I was also able to have small businesses included for the very first time ever. And so small businesses can now pool their resources up to $600,000. And that is really going to be big. So we'll get that information to you all, because if you have maybe an industrial park, or you have even some small businesses on a main street that are looking for a solution when it comes to that portion of the workforce, we want to make sure that you've got that in front of you to present that to them. So that was a really big one. Also NIH funding, I believe where we have life-saving and life-changing research, we need to see that through to fruition, and making sure that that research continues in a meaningful way. We know what UAB means to that and what South Alabama means to that and Hudson Alpha and so many places across Alabama, but we also know that it changes lives. And as I said, there is some mama in a hospital room somewhere across our great state or nation that is getting an unthinkable diagnosis for her child. And we want to make sure that she has every tool in her toolbox to help her child live their life to the best of their ability and hopefully live a lifetime full of health and happiness. So that was another thing. Also, the government shutdown. You know me, I got just right in the middle of it and really tried to find a pathway forward, knowing that there were so many people that were depending on that, whether it was me coming home, going to my 25-year class reunion and talking to some of my friends who had been furloughed or their spouse had, and what that meant going without a paycheck, or even flying home from DC to make it in time for my daughter's volleyball game, and sitting next to a gentleman whose wife ran a food bank here in the river region, talking about the increased number of clientele that they had. There were real effects on real people, and the people of America deserved us to get in a room and find a pathway forward, and I was proud to be a part of that. So there were a number of other wins, but certainly those are some of the significant takeaways of things where I felt like you all giving me an opportunity to serve our great state ultimately really made a difference. And last but not least, Tuskegee Airmen. So one of the first things that I did, when I went to all 67 counties and kind of listened to different things, we talked about the historic legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen and being able to bring a pilot program. We know we have a pilot shortage across America, and how do we work together, building off of that history at Moulton Field and elevating students in a way that helps them achieve and also helps us meet that need. So we reinstituted that program. It was one of the first things I did was get funding for that. And this year, the very first pilot, 2 pilots actually graduated from that, and that program continues to thrive.
Those accomplishments that you just mentioned will have such a tangible impact on not just Alabamians, but Americans, allowing them to thrive and prosper and live in vibrant communities. So building on your momentum you had in 2025, where are things right now in the FY26 appropriations process?
So great question. For those of you who have had to sit with me before, you know that I am a big believer in getting Congress back working for the American people. And one of the ways that we need to do that is getting back to what they say or they call regular order. It's a little bit of Washington speak, but what that means is us actually passing appropriations bills. So as you know, we were under a year-long CR previously under the previous leadership of the United States Senate. Not one appropriations bill out of 12 was put on the Senate floor. I have been working on this since I got there, so no matter whether it was Democrats in charge or Republicans in charge, I wanted to see a pathway forward. And I am so proud to report, one of the things we did to reopen the government was utilize a 3-bill package to actually get it moving. And then now we have just passed another package. Right now the House is passing the last package, so they're working on it. And if it gets across the Senate, we will have actually passed all 12 appropriations bills, which will be pretty remarkable. So we should, the House is working this week. We will go back in session next week, and we'll work to finish that, hopefully getting all of that done before January 30th to avert another government shutdown, but also show that we're working in a bipartisan way to do the work of the people who sent us there. So I think it's productive in a number of ways, and we're really excited about a lot of wins that are in there for the great state of Alabama as well.
You touched on it. Where do we stand right now with the January 30th deadline?
Yes, so we've got this 5-bill package, and guys, this is, the bills that are coming up at the end are T-HUD, labor age, you've got the defense bill, there's 5 of them that come together, and then Homeland Security is the one. I've got the beast in the room, so to speak, with that one. But we believe that will all pass next week. I feel good about that. We may have a little bit of things tweaking that we need to do. And then once we do that, we will immediately move into FY27. And our goal there is keep the government open, show functionality, being able to pass these bills in a way that we have not done in years, particularly in this environment, I think is promising for the American people. And so then we'll get started right off the bat to FY27, and that's something that we'll certainly need y'all's help on, is knowing the priorities that you have, knowing things that you believe will be transformational in your community. We'll start those hearings for oversight, the different agencies, and also really looking at, what are the funding needs and how is that money being used and where can we put it in good places.
What is the best way for our local leaders to get those priorities and initiatives to your team?
So, guys, we are working really hard. It's important to me that we are reaching every community, and while it's, that takes some time, we've got to map out and where have we helped and where are we not. And so we're really trying to figure out, there may be projects that we had in different communities that didn't make it across the finish line. So number one, we're trying to be very thoughtful about that. Two, we need things that are going to be transformational in nature for the communities that you serve, that will create a foundation that will help with public safety, that will alleviate an issue, that will close that gap. And there is a whole new process over the last few years in how we do that. So our team stands ready to help and to listen to what you have, what you want to see your community do. And look, some of it we may have to say, guys, there's not a federal nexus here, but we may be able to point you in a different direction. Or when you kind of tell us what you're thinking about, it may be that we can say, you know what, this is not a CDS request, but it is a grant request. Or there is a pilot program going here, and let's see if this works. We have found that even some of our best projects, sometimes you have to fine tune the presentation of those, figuring out what actually meets requirements, or it may be that we have to redirect those in a different way. So most definitely reach out to our team. I actually have our entire state team here with me today, and they do such a phenomenal job. Majority of them are standing over here on the side. Y'all raise your hands. Yes. Wait. I brought this because I figured they'd be the most popular people in the room. You know what I mean? So Shan, raise your hand real quick. Okay. So Shan McMillan has Madison, Limestone, Lauderdale, Franklin, Morgan, Lawrence, and Colbert County. And then, Colbert. And then Libby Franklin in our Birmingham office has Jackson, Marshall, Cherokee, Cleburne, Clay, DeKalb, Etowah, Calhoun, Talladega, and Randolph. And then Christian Sanford in our Birmingham office has Jefferson, Shelby, Bibb, raise your hand, there you go, Bibb, Blunt, and St. Clair. And then Susanna Cleveland has Chilton, Chambers, Elmore, Lowndes, Coosa, Dallas, Macon, Montgomery, Tallapoosa, Autauga, and Lee. You had to get that War Eagle in there, didn't you, Susanna? And moving to there you go. Kelly Wolf has Marion, there you go. As Marion, Lamar, Pickens, Green, Marengo, Winston, Fayette, Tuscaloosa, Hale, Coleman, Walker, Sumter, and Perry. And then Melanie Hill, Melanie, raise your hand, has Houston, Geneva, Conecuh, Pike, Russell, Henry, Coffee, Butler, Barber, Dale, Covington, Crenshaw, and Bullock. And then Tara Johnson has Mobile, Escambia, Washington, Choctaw, Baldwin, Monroe, Clark, and Wilcox. In addition, we have Melissa Battles, who is on maternity leave. We're so excited for her. And we have Ellen Lee, who's with us from our Dothan office. And then last but not least, very importantly, Dana Hall McCain, if you'll raise your hand, who is our state director, who I think puts more miles on her car than anybody else in Alabama. We appreciate all that you'll do. These women are going to be here. It's a great first touch of talking to them about your needs. And it's also, we want to be able to be helpful to people in your community. So having that relationship will be exceptional, whether it's someone who's having trouble with VA benefits or SNAP benefits or different disability or whatnot. This can be your go-to to help solve that. In addition to, in the unthinkable moments of natural disasters, we want to make sure that federal partners are standing shoulder to shoulder with you there in the community, and these are the women that'll be that first call and making sure that we're doing what we need to help your community make sure that we're rebuilding in the right way. So that's a great first step, and they're all here. We would love to be involved, not just in this way, but if there are events in your community where we can have a presence, we would love that. So let us learn the things that are going on, and let us help pair those with the right things that we think we could be helpful with.
That information is incredibly helpful, and I'll say to our membership, I know sometimes reaching out to our delegation, whether it be the state or federal level, making these asks can sometimes be intimidating, but your staff is they're top notch and so responsive. They're just incredible. So do not be afraid to reach out and make that ask or ask questions and set up a meeting with them, because they are so responsive and they're there to help you.
Yeah, and we just had a lunch where they got to talk about the different wins and the different ways that they have helped, and it's truly remarkable. You are only as good as the people around you. These women are the very best, and we stand ready to be a partner, and if it's not us that can help, try to help figure out what that pathway is.
My last question, outside of appropriations, what are some of your other priorities looking ahead?
Wow, we've been going 90-0, Kayla. It's an exciting time because there's a lot happening. I would say probably a number of things, but nothing comes to mind more than social media.
Yeah.
So a lot of you have heard me say this, but I don't have to ask people what it's like to raise kids right now. I am living it. And just the negative effect of social media on the next generation, and truly, if we're being honest, like on all of us, is significant. And so in the course of this last year, I added an additional committee. And so I'm on the Rules Committee, I'm on Banking Committee, I'm on Appropriations, and now I'm on Senate Judiciary Committee. And through Senate Judiciary, there are a number of avenues where I'm really digging in even more, when it's talking about, the HALT Fentanyl Act came through there. There's a number of antitrust, number of different things that I'm getting to kind of deal with from a different perspective. But social media is one of those as well. You all know this, but I'm going to say it again just because there may be someone in your community that needs to hear it. But the rate of depression amongst young people between 2011 and 2019 more than doubled. It perfectly coincides with the rise of social media. When you're looking at social media, they say you spend more than an hour a day, you're not going to feel better about that. You typically feel more challenged. The longer you stay on an algorithm, then the more money they make, and the more depressing the content, the longer that you stay. CDC put out that 1 in 3 high school young women in 2021 actually considered death by suicide. And then you had 20% of high school young women that actually in 2023, the report language said that actually made a plan to take her own life. And then 13% of high school young women actually attempted death by suicide in the United States of America. And when you add in young men, that number is 9%. So this is very real, and looking the other way is not an option. Big tech has a hold on Congress. I think Congress is feckless in the way that we have approached this. The time to do something is now. And so just a couple of flashing lights for you. Number 1, in 2 Senate Judiciary Committee hearings, we had mamas sitting across from us and father whose child had bought a pill on Snapchat. Now, nobody needs to be buying pills on Snapchat, so let's start there. But you don't think you're going to buy one and die. It only takes 5 grains of sand, the equivalent of that, of fentanyl, to kill someone. And these children had bought a Loratab and had bought a Percocet and took it and died. And so if that were a storefront in a main street in your town where you're the mayor, don't you think we would shut that thing down? Yes, we would. And so we must do more. And you're thinking about this, there is Section 230 protections that big tech has, and it is absolutely time to revisit those. Because nobody should be held blameless if you're knowingly looking the other way on this stuff. And we have found, moving into kind of this space, sextortion is real. You know, none of us in this room, except for some of you who are a few years younger than me, grew up with front-facing cameras. Right? And so you have children that are taking these either into their room or just in their space in general, that are taking photos of themselves and engaging in adult behavior. But guys, I mean, this is uncharted territory from both a parenting perspective, so talking to parents about what's happening, and also from a young people. And there are rings of people that are actually blackmailing these children. We have had a number of children whose parents have sat across from me who have taken their own life as a result of that. So also every time I speak to young people, I say, look, there is somebody that loves you, family member, teacher, somebody in your community. You are never alone, no matter what the mistake is. Come to us. So coming from someone like you talking to kids when you have that opportunity, I think is really important, but we need to be aware of that. Obviously, you have the traditional bullying that we think of that, you know, went from just in the hallways to now constant on their phones. So, and last but not least, these AI chatbots. Look, we have to win the AI race. Right? We have to beat China. You look at space and AI, we've got work to do to lead, but we got to be responsible in the way that we do this. And AI chatbots, I have a piece of legislation, the GUARD Act, in addition to legislation that we have, Kids Off Social Media Act and Stop the Scroll that I have with Senator Fetterman, and just a number of pieces of legislation that we think put up proper guardrails. But this AI chatbot stuff is real, Kayla. You know, Meta, we found out that they were allowing sensual relationships with 8-year-olds. 8-year-olds. And so if you can make a device that can essentially, hopefully, cure cancer, you know, do all these things that they tell you AI may be able to do, and there's a lot of good that comes from it, you can certainly make that device put up the proper guardrails. And those types of relationship, in addition to those chatbots isolating children from their parents, you know, and ultimately in a number of cases where the children have taken their own life, when they go back into the device, the chatbot actually encouraged that. The chatbot encouraged the isolation. The chatbot in many cases has had sexual relationships with those children via that, and then also encouraged them away from their parents, and also in that process. So we're in uncharted territory, and putting our head in the sand is not going to work. There is a child out there, there's a parent out there that needs you to communicate this to them so that they can be ready to protect the next generation. So I'm going to keep fighting hard on that front because I think the fact that we have not been able to do anything is absolutely ridiculous, and I think we're allowing an entire generation of children to pay the price for it. And so I will absolutely be on that. I'm going to keep working hard on the appropriations process, building off of some of the things that we've done, you know, this year in a number of spaces, and then making sure that Alabama, our values and our people are front and center. So whether it's meaningful projects that we still, you know, we need, you know, and one more push, or the investment that I've made sure and committed for HBCUs across the state, elevating, you know, workforce training programs and whatnot. You know, we stand ready to make significant strides. I'm proud of the work we've done securing the border and making sure that we're creating safe and strong communities. And what I want us to do is continue to elevate that and look at additional things we can do to create that American dream. And all of these things And then I would say, probably last but not least, on the affordability issue, I am the subcommittee chair for housing on the banking committee. And looking at how unaffordable housing has gotten, it blows your mind. So we're taking different components, whether it's, gas and groceries, and looking at driving down that, energy prices and the effect there, the effect on the price of energy in the home, all of that. And then in addition to these other things that to me have been components for so long of the American dream, like housing, and saying, what are the actual issues, getting down to root causes, and then trying to find pathways forward. I have a piece of legislation that made it into the Road to Housing Act. It was with Senator Jack Reed, and it helps people go from government assistance into being able to own their own home, and it's one of the only pieces of that type of legislation that made it in there. So we'll keep pushing that and pushing for solutions, but it's exciting that we got a lot of good stuff ahead of us.
Well, it's exciting to have you up in DC, because I don't think any of us have any doubt with you at the helm, with your involvement, all of the issues you just mentioned, we're going to see substantial change in for the better. And so we thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being such a great champion to our state and our nation. The work you are doing, it's creating communities that allow citizens to thrive and for businesses to thrive. And so we just can't say thank you enough and how much we appreciate you. Y'all, please join me in giving her a round of applause.
Thank you.